Well, I think if you all want to have more burritos and tacos, we need to get more Hispanic vocations. I want to ask you to please stand to read the Word of God. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. The beginning of the Gospel of Jesus Christ, Son of God. As it is written in Isaiah the prophet, "Behold, I am sending my messenger ahead of you. He will prepare you your way. A voice of one crying out in the desert, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight his paths." It happened in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized in the Jordan by John. On coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens being torn open and the Spirit, like a dove, descending upon him. And a voice came from the heavens, "You are my beloved Son, with you I am well pleased." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Please be seated. Well, a few months ago, Miguel Mireles, now the current director of the shrine, had reached out to me and asked me if I would be available to come and share my vocation story to the Serra Club. And I was like, well, let's look at some dates. Sure. So, first of all, I would like to thank God for giving us this opportunity to be here at Catholic Charities and for the warm welcome that we have received. I would also like to thank Richard for, making the arrangements, and Molly. They've become good friends. I consider them good friends. My vocation story is very special. Just like everyone's vocation in this room is special. Every vocation, as you know, is a gift from the heart of Jesus, from the heart of God. Now, the vocation to the priesthood has a deeper appreciation because every priest is called to reflect the life of Christ in his life. So sometimes we tend to say, well, yeah, only the priest, only the vocation to the priesthood comes from the heart of Jesus. Well, that's not true. Your vocation as a married couple, sister's vocation as a religious sister, and those who are responding currently to God's call, it's a call and it's a gift from the heart of God, because God does not just give to one and not to the other. You see, Father Timothy, he was the organist at Conception Seminary College, and I asked him one time. I was having a very difficult time understanding what Saint Paul meant when he said God is not partial. I was like, Father Timothy, as we were walking into the building, I said, what does it mean that God is not partial? And he said, Chris, he was very, to the point. He said, Chris, God doesn't make any distinctions. He loves you the same as he loves him. He loves all of us equally. So from there, I learned a great lesson, that every vocation comes from the gift, from the heart of God. And that's why my vocation is very special, and I take it very serious, and I love the fact that I was able to respond to this call. And how did this happen? Well, let's go back. When I was 4 years old, the first time I told my mom I wanted to be a priest was when I was 4 years old, and my mother is right here, and my two sisters. You see, my friends told me that the boogeyman, El Cucuy, if you know, was going to come and get me. And I immediately ran towards my mother and I asked her that if I became a priest, that the boogeyman would not be able to come and get me and I would go with God forever. She said, that's correct. And I said, I want to become a priest. I come from a family of 11. I am the 7th of 11. I have 8 sisters and 3 brothers. I'm the youngest of the 3 boys. I have 21 nieces and nephews. My sister Matilde has 5 of them. If you want one to take to the summer, go talk to her. So I come from a very devout Catholic family. My mother made a conscious effort to instill in us the Roman Catholic and Apostolic faith. You know, Christian values were the order of the day and were central in our family. We would attend Sunday Mass regularly, and the church was just up the hill, maybe 100 yards from our home in Mexico City. We are from a town called San Isidro, St. Isidore the Farmer, San Isidro, called El Chiquihuitero. Don't try to say it. Just know that it's in Aguascalientes, Hot Springs. And we would attend Sunday Mass regularly. Once a month, our family would take up a holy hour at midnight. So you can imagine the whole clan, the whole troop would make it, we would climb up the hill to make it to the church, St. Isidore the Farmer Church. And then, as you can imagine, there was a lot of sleeping in those pews because it was late, So, but nonetheless, we were there every month or whichever the schedule fell on. Our family was there, and no questions asked, no buts and ifs. We were there for that holy hour. So my vocation didn't start there when I was 4 and I told my mom that I was afraid of the boogeyman. It started when I was in my mother's womb, and I can tell you I was almost 15 pounds when I was born. So my poor mother, that's why. And it was a natural birth. So at the age of 10, my father and my mother, they decided, to move the whole family to the United States. This was in 1997, and as you can imagine, the economy in my hometown and just in that part of the state at that time was precarious. I mean, it was difficult. So my father decided to make the flight to the United States. And I remember vividly saying goodbye to all my cousins. I have a lot of them, aunts, uncles, and my friends. That was the first time we had ever traveled together as a family outside of the state of Aguascalientes. So this was 2 weeks after my birthday in June 7th is my birthday. So when we arrived to the border between Mexico and the United States, we went, settled there in a hotel, and we waited for the coyote or coyotes to arrive. And as you know, coyotes are those who know the routes, certain routes, hidden routes, to cross over to the United States. Now, after a short night with little sleep, we were divided into 3 taxi cars and taken out to the outskirts of the city. Now, for me, this seemed like the coolest adventure I had ever experienced. For my parents, it was probably the worst time in their lives because they knew how dangerous it was. So we tried the first time and got caught. We tried to cross a second time and we got caught. We tried a third time, walked 24 hours, ran out of food and water with 25 people at foot, and we were finally caught at sunrise and thrown back to Mexico. Literally like animals. I want to be clear. I am not advocating for open borders or free admission to just anyone or everyone. I'm just sharing what my family had to go through to get here in desperate need, seeking a better life, and for that matter, the American dream. We were so discouraged that we wanted to go back home. However, we tried one more time and got caught again. At this moment, we were downcast, and except one of my sisters, Andrea. So, as I said, we were very discouraged. So my sister Andrea stood in front of all of us, and she said boldly, "We are not going back until we make it over." So we were all like, "Wow, I guess we will." So my father placed a medal of Our Lady of Guadalupe around her neck, And so we all agreed. We all agreed to give it one more try. Well, thank God we did. We made it over after the 5th try. Now, we arrived at Colorado, and as a big family, I mean, we lived in a trailer. We didn't speak English. We started going to school, no friends. The church, once again, was just right down the street from our house, and that's where we always found the refuge. That's where we always felt that we belonged, because people were always very welcoming. As you know, and you have experience here in our diocese, you go to any church and you have welcoming people, very kind people. Now, they were our cheerleaders. You see, my parents were so patient and understanding, so much that they were there. I mean, we were so, we wanted to come back. I mean, once we were in Colorado, we were like, we don't have any friends, we don't speak English, we don't understand what they're saying. It was really, really frustrating. So, they were our cheerleaders, and they never allowed us to get discouraged. Now, you'll start noticing there's a pattern here. So we arrived to Colorado, no Spanish Mass, lots of Hispanic people all over, not going to Mass. And what do? My mom has always been very active as a lector, as a Eucharistic minister, the Eucharistic, we have in Mexico perpetual adoration. So she was always very, very active. And she always took us with her. Now, my dad was always trying to make ends meet, working, odd jobs, selling cows, buying horses, exchanging cows for cats. I mean, he did the whole 9 yards. But my parents, when we got there, we went to the parish priest, and in fact, they didn't have a church. So the trailer park had a pool, and in that pool there was a gathering space like this. And so we asked if we could have Mass. And he says, well, I don't know Spanish, but Sister Annette speaks Spanish, so I can say Mass and she can translate the homily. And we said, it doesn't matter if you say it in Chinese, we just want Mass. So, we started the Spanish Mass with my family and about five other families. Now, Sister Annette, as I said, translated the priest's homily, and at the age of 10, she gave us, a few boxes with clothes, and shoes and all kinds of things. And one of the sweaters that she gave me, she specifically came and gave it to me. I had a white collar. I never made anything out of it until I was going through some old pictures from when I was in 4th grade. And I saw the white collar. I was like, well, isn't that strange? Well, in 1998, my grandfather came, to visit us in Colorado, and he got sick because of the high elevation, so he had to come to Oklahoma, where my uncle Alfredo was living, my father's brother. So my grandpa had one toe amputated right there in Norman Regional because of the high elevation in Colorado. So he was hospitalized there in Norman, and my dad decided to bring the whole family to visit him. So after we were here for about a week or 10 days, we stayed in my aunt's apartment. Can you imagine 11 in a small, it was like a 2-bedroom apartment. Some of us slept in the roof. My mom and dad, decided that this was a better state to raise a big family. So here comes the search for a home. Now, if you have rental property, or even if you know about apartments, we would go to the apartment complexes or call. We didn't go. They would get scared with 11 of us. So we would say, any vacancies? Well, how many people there are? 11. Oh, no, that's illegal. We can't do that. We cannot accept. I was like, okay. Well, we, had to, the next call was, do you have how many? 6. Oh, no, that's too much. We can't, it's illegal, So after the 3rd call and the same answer, we just said, okay, forget about it. We're going to just look for a home. So we actually, my father, in 1998, bought a home there in the shadows of St. Charles, right there on 45th and MacArthur. So he sold the house over there and gave a big chunk, and we bought the house here in Oklahoma City. So once again, we were right in the shadows of a church. Well, as you know, there was not a Spanish Mass at St. Charles in 1998. So what happens, shortly after that, we were driving to St. Eugene's. At the time, Father Pruitt was the pastor. Then it became Father Jacoby. So we would drive 30 minutes away from a church that was 2 minutes, walking distance, because there was no Spanish Mass. So the Archbishop at that time, Beltran, appointed Father Obi Sumas from Nigeria as the associate pastor with Father Gallatin, Father Paul Gallatin. May God rest his soul. Now, so the community once again was there. We would go sometimes to the English Mass, but we all knew where the Spanish was. It was at St. Eugene's. So we would go there, but then we said, well, why are we driving over there if there's a church here? So we approached Father Obi, he said, and we started having Spanish Stations of the Cross. And that was the only thing he said. We can only start with that. We can't do any more because we will take anything you give us. So we started the Spanish Stations of the Cross. And then at the end of those Stations of the Cross, before Holy Friday, our family with other group of families approached Father Obi. Said, Father Obi, you see the people that have come, 100, 200, 300 to the station. I've never seen 300 people in any of our churches ever since that time for Stations of the Cross, because we're so busy, We're so busy to go to the Stations of the Cross. You have to kneel. It's not convenient, and we can go on because we have so many things to do. Now, we approached and said, Father, we want Spanish Mass. He says, well, I don't speak Spanish. You can say it in Swahili or whatever language you speak, but you speak English. We can come. We have lectors, and they can read in Spanish. And he says, okay, let me talk to Father Gallatin. So he went to Father Gallatin, and he said, Father Gallatin, the Hispanos, they want Spanish Mass. And what did you tell them? We're starting next week. Oh, because Father Gallatin said, no, we have to think about it. We have to reflect and see what we can do. He said, I already told them we're going to have it next week. So we did. Literally. That's how it happened. Literally, that's how it happened. And if you know Father Obi, he would kind of do that. I'm glad he did. Now, it was a whole change of the ball game. I mean, starting the Spanish Mass there, not to get too far, distracted from, because that's part of my vocation. That's part of what has nurtured my vocation, just like your motto says here, to nurture and to promote. Well, I think the Serra Club has been doing that ever since I arrived, Now, Richard was saying, well, Father, give us some, suggestions or some advice. Well, I want to see at least 5, 6 Hispanos, like real Mexican men, or like my mother. Please add her to this list, and invite her to join. She might not have the 150 to pay your due, but I will pay it for her. She's not working right now.
She's in.
All right. That's a suggestion and an advice. We need more Hispanic parents to join the Serra Club, because this is not an elite club, is it? It's for everybody. I'm just, making a point. So we need more Hispanos in this group, and just that'll change. Now, if you want to do a completely separate, that's up to you, but I wouldn't do it. It needs to be one group, because I'm one priest. I'm a priest not for the Hispanos, not for the Anglos. I'm a priest for the Roman Catholic Church. So that's something that I would recommend. We need more parents like my mother. She knows what she went through, because she has a son that has gone through that process. Now, some of our Hispanic parents don't know how to. Once they, this is a little parenthesis. When we as Hispanics hear there's a due, they have the money, but that throws them off. Like, why? What's going on? They will give you more by time, talent, and treasure cooking all those burritos and stuff. They will give you 1,000 worth in your due, but that just throws us off. Because we're not used to that. And so sometimes it's better not to understand us, but to go along, so that we could become part of the larger church. Does it make sense? Yes. It's not disrespecting, because I tell my Hispanic community, we have to learn so many things from our Anglo community. That, discipline, on time. All of those things are good. And I do that in Woodward. I say Mass is at 1 and we start at 12:55. I close the side doors 5 minutes before Mass starts, so that everybody comes late. They come through the back. They're not going to disturb the liturgy, not me, the liturgy. So anyway, is that okay?
And the Anglos, if they were going to come, they'd sign up and come at that time. But they didn't do it. The Hispanics, they didn't sign up, but there was somebody there every hour all night long. So you just have to understand, it was beautiful, and they kept it afloat. We've been doing it for 7 years straight. But I had so much respect for these women who would come and pray for 1, 2, 3 hours at night in our little garage chapel across from St. James. I never knew who was there at what hour, but they were there. The Anglos didn't understand. If they signed up, they'd come, but nobody signed up and nobody came.
Mm-hmm.
But the Hispanics kept it going. So I just think we do have to understand we operate differently, but it's all beautiful and all part of the body.
But we can learn. I mean, I mean, trust me, I advocate more to your end, you know, because we need to learn that, you know. But trust me, how are you? Yeah. How are you going to change, you know, a 500-year tradition? It just, if you can't, you just kind of unite yourself, and then along the way, we see the Hispanic. Oh, look, they do it like this. Oh, we can start doing it like that. But if you force it on them, forget about it.
And we see things too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let the Holy Spirit work.
Right. You know, for Cursillos, I'm so grateful to Father Don Ho. So I had just graduated. Yeah, this was not a part of my talk. I had just graduated from seminary, and I mean, I knew it all. I still do. No. So I graduated from Conception Seminary College, and I came to, I was sent to Shawnee, St. Benedict's in Shawnee. Father Don was the pastor, and I mean, literally, I arrived there like at 2 o'clock, and he says, we're leaving because I have the Cursillo this weekend, and just pack your little bag and let's go. And I said, oh, am I going to give a talk? And I mean, he's like, yeah, just come. He kind of ignored it. He's on the way there. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to just share everything I kind of learned. He's like, no, you're not giving any talks. You're just going to go and live the Cursillo. I'm like, okay. It changed the whole way. And there I knew, you know, you just kind of have to abide, you know. So we went. I loved it. I lived my Cursillo, had a beautiful experience. I became the Cursillo director a couple of times now, or, you know, the spiritual director. Even once in Woodward, at St. Peter's, and that was before I was even, I think, I was at St. Eugene's when I went to become, and I never thought I was going to be appointed pastor of Woodward. Anyway, so what I'm saying is, you know, going to Cursillo, I learned that, you know, the power of that weekend and how it can transform us and how it's transformed the Anglo and the Hispanic community. Anyway, so that was just a little side note. Now, let's move, you know, forward. We had the Spanish Mass, started the Spanish Mass at St. Charles, and now we started, you know, going there for, you know, every Wednesday. My mother, every Wednesday we would go for Holy Hour. Rain or shine, because Wednesdays, that's when they still have, I think, they still have the Holy Hour. So we would go to Holy Hour, and that was like the best hour of my whole week, because I knew I could go there, I could sit in front of the Lord, I would let him, I would see him, he saw me, and I just let everything, I put everything in his hands. And I was only 16 years old. Now, I told you, the first time I told my mom I wanted to become a priest, it was when I was 4. Well, you know, we moved here, 10 years old. I was an altar server under Father Pruitt. He was my pastor. I was his altar server, you know, in 1998. And then, you know, one time, the thurifer was carrying the thurible, and I just like had a revelation. I was like, wow, I wish one day I could like swing the thurible, you know. It just became so like a godly moment, you know. And so I said, okay. So I kept going and being an altar server, 10 years, 12, 13, 14, you know that time, 13, 14, you start feeling butterflies. Did you ever feel that? Well, I kind of forgot about all the priesthood, and, you know, I said, you know, I had friends, a lot of friends, and just started, you know, to just be a normal, you know, young man. You know, with my sisters, we would go everywhere. I mean, we would go to so many quinceañeras, weddings. I've danced more than you could ever dance in your whole... Because I come from a family that we know, I think, you know, we love to celebrate, and we love to be around the table. That's where, you know, a lot of our beautiful conversations and blessings come from, when we sit around a table and eat a good meal. Especially when my mom cooks her chile rojo. That's her, like, the next time you invite her, tell her to cook and she can bring it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, My junior year and senior year, we lived in Mustang. We moved, to Mustang. And once again, the church, you're not going to believe it, was right next to our home. In fact, there was a bridge. There was a bridge connecting, between our home and the church. And it's still there. The home is not ours anymore. So Father Jim Griner, Jim Griner, was the pastor at the time. Now, my mom and a few other parishioners did the same thing, approached him about the possibility of starting a Spanish Mass. Now, the Spanish Mass, as you know, has grown by leaps and bounds. I mean, now Father Jacoby, his second huge church. So in the middle of all of this, I have not forgotten what I told, my mom when I was 4 years old. So I was active in the youth group at St. Charles. I was active at all the retreats. However, I had completely forgotten about, what that might be, what God had, placed in my heart. So my focus, was on having fun. I would go out, I had a lot of friends. I had so much fun in my teenage years, and healthy fun. I never drank or smoked anything. I had my first beer when I was in the seminary and when I turned 21. It was the first time I had a beer and a glass of wine, and I thought it was, I was like, where have you been all my life, Now, I went to Catholic Heart War Camp, the Holy Hour every Wednesday as a family. Now, when we were there in one of those holy hours, Sister Margarita Vasquez, may God rest her soul, they are Hermanas Catequistas Guadalupanas. She approached me and she asked me if I wanted to act the role of the Bishop of Mexico, Juan de Zumárraga, for the apparitions of Our Lady of Guadalupe. If you know, in December, we do the reenactment. So I was just shocked, and I told her to ask someone else because I was worried about what people would say about me. She said, don't do it for the people, do it for Mary and for Jesus. So she changed the whole perspective, and I agreed. I said, okay, I'll do it. Now, my sister Maria, who's here, was invited to act the role of Mary. Well, Maria, Mary's, same. One time, we arrived early for practice, and Sister Margarita asked me to go with her to her office to bring the script. So I followed her, and when we arrived to the door, she placed the key in the doorknob and left it there, and while at the same time turning around, and she looked straight into my eyes, and she asked me, have you ever thought about being a priest? I had been struggling with that, At this time, I had a girlfriend. I said, no, not really. What are you talking about? Have you ever thought about being a priest? And there's a saying in Spanish, la sangre se me bajó hasta los pies. My blood dropped to my toes. I said, how do you know? How do you know that I'm kind of having this, struggle, whether I go to the seminary, because I wanted to have a family, I wanted to have children, So I told her that I was not interested in that, and that she should ask someone else. To which she responded, no, you have a vocation. So I told her, well, I will pray to Jesus and Mary so that they can open the door for me. So I imagined it's going to be a big, oak wood door that I'm just going to walk through. Well, as you know, with God, it doesn't work that way. His doors are open differently. So I asked God for another sign. And one time after the Spanish Mass, Father Joe Irwin, he was the associate pastor at St. Charles, asked me. He came right after Mass and directly to me. Not my friend to the right or to the left, but he came directly to me. He asked me if I was interested in going to visit the seminary, for a come and see weekend. So I agreed. I said, yeah. But I prayed that he would forget about my yes. So a week before the trip, he called me to let me know that, to let me know what I needed to bring. So after I hung up, I said to myself, he's going to forget and I'm going to stay here. So Friday night, he called me again and said, to show up at the pastoral center because the charter bus was going to be leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, okay. That weekend, my parents were going to Mexico. They had all their bags downstairs, so we had a 2-story house, and so I packed my bags. But see, I packed my bags with clothes that I didn't wear because I wanted to impressed, like, I'm going to the seminary, so I have to wear like slacks, and, I saw how priests were, dressed. Well, let me tell you, I've been ironing my clothes since I was in fifth grade. I mean, my mom, sometimes if I asked her, but I always did, and my dad didn't like that. Because anyway, so I've always ironed my clothes, and I did my laundry and this and that, and so one I got my luggage together, but it was with clothes that I've never. I mean, I don't even know why I came up with those button-down shirts and things like okay. So I did that, and then I placed it down in the by the stairwell, and so they left like at 6 a.m, and guess what? They took my bag. I was furious. I was so mad. I said, why? I called him. I said, where are you? Oh, we're down in Denton, Texas. I'm like, you took my bag. No, we didn't. Yes, you did. Let me check. Oh, yeah, it's back here. Anyway, so I told my sisters, I said, I'm not going to go. This is over. I'm not going. And they're like, Cristobal, ya le dijiste que si vas a ir. Ándale, tienes ropa, blah, blah, blah. Like, they were trying to convince me. My sisters always, I have 8 of them. So I said, okay. So I actually went to my wardrobe, or my closet, and put out clothes that I actually wore. And the clothes that I wore, was ripped jeans, very like Hollister shirts and Abercrombie, and my hair was like this. I mean, I think they were. So that was the real me. I was trying to put out, something that was not me, and God said, no. I want you to be you so that you can become what you're not. Does it make sense? A priest needs to become who he is before he can become what he's not. Because we're not priests. As lay persons, we are, prophet, priest, and king, yes. But not ministerial, not ordained. A seminarian is not a priest. But he first has to become who he is, with his flaws, his virtues, his blessings, his weaknesses, so that he can become what he's not. Because if we pretend to be what we're not, then we're not going to be who we are, and we're going to, forfeit what God wants us to be. So anyway, that it was right at the beginning. God said, no. You need to be you, and we'll work on you as we go, and in the process, we'll change you. So I trusted the process. I trusted my formators, and like I said, by this time I was a junior in high school. So I had a girlfriend, I had a landscaping business. Life was treating me well. I was having so much fun. But I was not being fulfilled. I would arrive home, I would close the door to my room, and I would feel empty and lonely. And let me tell you, we had lots of friends. I had lots of friends, That's when I asked God what He wanted from me. He didn't answer, the way I wanted. Oh, like you said, a lightning, or somebody telling me, an angel coming down in my dream. Never. So that's when I asked God, what is it that you want from me? And I didn't get an answer, or the way I was expecting. Now, however, as soon as we arrived, because I'm already there. We're going to the seminary. So as soon as we arrived to the seminary, which, is in the middle of nowhere. If you've been to Conception, Missouri, I felt so much peace. I felt at peace with myself for the first time in a long time. And I said to myself, this is the place I've been longing for my whole life. So after a fabulous weekend, we came back from Conception, and, I placed, I said, Lord, this is whatever you want to do, So on the way back, I approached Father Joe Irwin, and I told him that I was very interested in the seminary. But there was a big problem. How was I supposed to pay tuition and this and that? He told me, don't worry. If God is calling you, He will provide. Till this day, He has provided all the way. All the way. He has been more generous and given me more than I had ever expected. Now, when I went to the seminary, I didn't have no study habits, full of energy, yes, very enthusiastic about life and in general. So I started the application process, when Father Lowell Steverman, who remembers Father Steverman? God rest his soul. He was the vocations director at the time. He treated me with so much love and respect. He took me out to lunch. He talked me through the whole process. So after, as you know, applying is a long process, and thank God it's a long process because it's not for the faint of heart. So after a long process of interviews and meetings, psychological exams, I was granted an appointment to see the Archbishop Beltran. To meet with. I was granted an interview in a meeting with Archbishop Beltran. So I had been so nervous, to go see him because I had never spoken to an archbishop in my life. So as I arrived, to his office, he gently, showed me the way to the chair. So I sat right across from his desk. And, the only thing I remember him saying was, "Please give me a full year. Don't come back half semester." I responded, "I will try my best, Archbishop, and the rest is history. I'm here." So, I had a blast. I had a blast during my 8 years of seminary. Now, just like any vocation, was it all perfect? Was it all, just high and, the high notes? No. There were some low notes. There was deaths in my family. There was, losses in my family. I mean, there's just a normal life. In fact, my second year of seminary, I had Father Xavier. I think Noah knows him. Father Xavier was my spiritual director, and I've had a spiritual director ever since 2006. Up to right now, Father Jacoby is my spiritual director. So I had a blast. I had a really blast. But then that second year, something in my family, unexpected happened that I thought I needed to come back and assist them. Well, I was determined to leave. I said, I need to go back and help my brother and, to help my family financially. And Father Xavier, he looked, he said, "Well, if God brought you here, you place that in His hands and He's going to take care of it." And I said, "Well, why didn't you tell me this before?" I said, "God, here, you take this." And as I'm telling you, it just kind of like took that weight off of me and gave me that certitude that you need to be here. Let God will take care of your family. You don't need to go, because what are you going to do? So I met people, I never thought I was going to meet. I went to places I never thought I was going to go. I met people from all over the world that I never thought I was going to meet. I traveled to different states. All of this was only possible because my mother and father had the courage to bring us to the United States. I became a legal resident, then a U.S. citizen, not too long ago. I think Mary Lotta was there and Pia O'Hare were there for my ceremony here on Southwest 44th and, next to right by the airport. So as you know, the legal process was arduous. I mean, and really expensive. I mean, it took more than 20 years. The reason why we came to the United States is because my father had, he had his legal, residency in 1986. He had applied ever since. I was born in 87. And my mother and father, he said, "Well, we can't wait this long. I mean, we're not going to make it here in Mexico." So that's why they said we just have to go. So my three sisters, Sandra, Jenny, and Matilde were the first to come to the United States to raise the funds, the money to be able to send it so that we could cross. I mean, back then it was like $20,000 to be able to cross. Because my father had put in the application, but it was not coming through. I mean, it was just not moving. So that's why we came. So as I said, crossing the desert at a very young age, reminds me of the Old Testament story about Moses, helping the Israelites cross the Red Sea to the Promised Land. And that's how I see my life. God taking us from a little town that you probably don't even see in the map, with a very maybe 100 families or less. But we were taken out of there. The sea was parted so that we could come here. And as you know, it's right here. In 1981, my mother, my father's grandmother, she had some means, so she would send money to the Maryknoll priest in Guatemala and in South America. So she received the Maryknoll magazine. And who was in the front cover? Blessed Stanley Rother. But he was in the front cover because he had just been murdered. So they were praying because this man who was a priest had given his life and was murdered, was killed. So my mother, and she had never seen an American man like an Anglo. And she's like, because I think, where he's holding the hand of the girl? Well, that's the one she saw. And then he's like, oh, he must be an American, but she just didn't know. Okay, it's a priest, an American. How sad that, he was murdered. Well, when we came here in 1998 and a little later, we, like in 2000, I don't know when the process started with Bishop Taylor and Archbishop Beltran, but we started praying the prayer. And my mom was like, wait a minute, this is the same priest that we were praying to in Mexico, or that I saw in the magazine. And so my mom, commended my vocation to Blessed Stanley Rother. When I was in the seminary, ella me encomendó mi vocación al Beato Stanley Rother. And as you know, he is the first priest born in the United States, a martyr. He's the first American martyr priest. Now, just as I was saying, to be able to approach, foster, and support the vocations in the Hispanic community, let me tell you, it's a tough nail. Because us Hispanics, I say we, because I have my sisters, we are so demanding, so to speak. We want a baptism, we want a quinceañera, we want it now, Father. If you don't do it, well, I'm like, no, it's not how it works. Because sometimes we're not active. We just want the quinceañera and the wedding, and then we don't come ever until we baptize or have their. No, that's not how it works. Now, slowly, everywhere I go, I'm teaching my people. Because that's the only way we could do it. A lot of our people are not educated, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just the fact that we come from very humble beginnings, some of us come from cities that are bigger than Oklahoma City, with more and this and that. More people have more means than some of us in this room. But that's not the point. The point is that to open that door into the Hispanic world, it's messy. But in a good way. It's messy, it takes work. Some of us priests don't want to mess with that. Honestly. Some of us, my brother priests, are like, and I don't blame them. Because it's not their reality. They don't understand it. They're not supposed to understand. They're just supposed to love them. So I applaud some of my brother priests because I said, yeah, just stay out of it. Just love them. Love them. But if you try to understand them, you're gonna grow white hair immediately. So to be able to thanks to Father Brian Bittner and the Archbishop, that we are kind of opening a door that has never been opened. We have a Hispanic subcommittee for vocations in Spanish with Luis Soto and then Father John Paul Lewis as the director of that program, or I don't know what to call it. It's a ministry. But all that has been possible because of the Archbishop and Father Brian and Father John Paul Lewis have been receptive and open and say, well, listen, this is where we are. 60%, enough, if not 65, and Dennis can correct that if need be. 60 to 65% of Oklahoma public schools are what? Hispanic. Why don't we have more Hispanic vocations? The posters I see for the vocations, they don't reflect our people. But it's because the Hispanic families, they don't want to give a son. They're like, no, I want him to be a doctor. I want him to earn money because in Mexico we didn't have money. And I'm like, that's not how you see a vocation. A vocation is not about money. I'm not in the priesthood for money. My family supports me. I mean, as you know, I don't know if you know how much we make, but we don't. Now, we're not hurting by any means. Like I said, I've never missed a nickel out of my bank account because I've entered the circle of generosity. And if I see a need, I don't ask. I don't, where are you going to spend it on? Drugs or, no, I give. If it's a poor man, if it's a rich man, if they ask, I give. God takes care of the rest. And He has taken care of me for sure. So I've never been stingy, tight with my money. That has never held me back. I don't have much, but what I have, I give. And it just comes back in blessings with my family, with my nephews, my nieces. It's hard to enter the circle of generosity, and I'm teaching my Hispanic people. And I don't know if this is part of the story, but this is how I approached it. In Woodward, when I arrived, there was, for the Spanish Mass, maybe 150, 180 people going to Mass. Now we have 350 going to Mass. Our collections have doubled or tripled. Just so many things that we teach them, they respond. I've opened so many, I like to call them can of worms, because I'm like, oh, what have I done here? Because in the good sense of they become butterflies, because they have just transformed the parish. We've done all kinds of fundraisers. We're going to have our 3rd annual festival that has nothing like that had ever been done since 1978. Things like that, because we have to teach them. And now I'm the first Mexican-American priest to be ever ordained for the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, because the priests in Shawnee, they're not diocesan. I'm the first ever, like Father Stanley Rother, and I don't say that proudly. I say that with very, a lot of reservation, because we need more like me, and we need more like you, from your family. So it's very hard to tap into the why. How and why can how can we invite the Hispanic families to give their sons away? It's only going to take prayer. It's going to take, being in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and not just praying, but adoring, begging to send us more. Gracias, Chalo. Thank you for the burritos. Begging God, begging our Lord to send us more vocations, because our Hispanic community has grown by leaps and bounds. But also our Anglo communities need to know that we have lots of work to do, because a lot of our youth are gone. They're not in the pews, because what's going on? We have placed so much importance to sports, extracurriculum, and we want our son and daughter to be the best in everything but except their faith. What a shame. That's a shame.
Your family? Do you have any nephews or nieces who have vocation?
Well, my sister, Maria, she already left. My sister Maria, and 2 of my sisters went to check out the convent, but they're like, maybe that's not for us. But no, I don't have any. Yeah.
Brother, though.
Oh, in the way, my brother, yeah, studying, yeah, he's studying, yes, in Mexico, but not here, yeah.
We need more mamas like that. Let's pray for that. Pray for the parents.
And we're almost, if you have any other questions, I just have a little small paragraph, but if you have any other question, no. Any other thing that you would like to know? Well, finally, crossing the desert at a very, very young age, like I said, it reminds me of how God took our family and just parted the Red Sea. If you've seen in the news or ever seen a movie or any documentary of how that plight is, of how dangerous it is, right now we would not be able to do it. My mom came twice, crossing the desert, and she said, it was just like a walk in the park. In 10 minutes we were over, and it was very doable. Well, when we came, she says, if I would have known that we were going to get caught 4 times, I wouldn't even tried it to bring us. So, gracias a mi madre, thanks to my mother and my dad for, and my mom has always been there. When I told her I was going to go to the seminary, she was ecstatic. She was just, but then when I left, she was like, don't leave. And I'm like, Mom, who understands you? No. And then my father, at first he was like, no, why are you going to the seminary? You should, you should, there's a truck. He had just bought a new truck. Here's a truck. Go and have fun with your friends. I'm like, no, Dad, I want to go to the seminary. And it took him a while, but then he was the cheerleader. He came to the seminary one time, and he's like, whatever you want to do, I'm going to support you. And it's just been a great blessing. It's been a joy. being able to, respond to the vocation that God has given me. And I just ask that you continue to pray for us. Continue to pray for us. For us priests, sometimes no one understands us, and everybody understands us, and it's fine. We are we are special characters, and we try to serve the Lord to the best of our ability. And it is friendships and couples and married couples like you all that make our life worth living, and the communities that we serve. That's what we live. I tell my people regularly. I don't know if they've never heard it, but they feel like they look at big eyes. I'm like, I'm here to love you and to lead you to heaven. I'm not here to like you, and not everybody here is going to like me. But I'm here to love you. And I said, I love you as your pastor. I love you. And it's very different than, I said, we can disagree. Hey, I like disagreeing. Having 8 sisters, I kind of learned how to negotiate. But I also learned how to be very respectful. Coming from a big family, and of course, Hispanic background, Mexican directly. Machismo is like the order of the day. Well, before I went to the seminary, my dad just said, you just gotta have to put that to rest, because you're not, gonna go into a church and try to, do things. No. So having 8 sisters has taught me to be gentle, to be receptive, to listen, sometimes listen, but more than that, to just be respectful of everyone, because as I said, that phrase, God is not partial, and I try not to be partial. My calling is to give, to be, and not to lean one way or another, whether the right or the left. No, I'm right. I'm with Jesus, and I'm with Pope Francis, and that's how I direct my life. Middle, in following my Archbishop, following the Pope. That's kind of how and my family is a big part of that. And because if God is calling you, He will give what you need. That's always been my little phrase. If God is calling you, whatever He's going to call you to, another position in your job, promotion, whatever, and you feel like you can't do it, well, if He's calling you and if He's putting that opportunity in front of you, He will provide. So God doesn't take away. He gives, and He gives in abundance. And I hope that you take what you heard here and just meditate specifically increasing the Hispanic, Mexican. There's many that I could just name on the top of my tongue, but I'll talk to Richard later, and we need more. And if I need to pay their dues so that they don't get scared, I will. St. Peter, St. Peter has money. I'm not saying my church. I say like the Vatican.
That's because he's Rob Paul.
No. I honestly mean that. Like, if you tell them there's a fee, forget about it. Let's get the fee somehow, another route, and I can help you and teach you how. Teresa.
You introduced me to Francisco and Ruben.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm praying for them. Do you have an update on?
He texted me the other day, and I haven't really directly asked, but they're still open. Yeah, they're.
What age were they? I didn't get there.
I think they were like 22, 23. Yeah, they're in college. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how many years have you been a priest?
Oh, okay. So this 28th, I will be 9 years ordained. Thank you. So this already 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. So June 1st, I was ordained a deacon, 2013. June 7th, I was born. June 28th, I was ordained. But I forgot to say this, and I really want to be. This needs to be on record. I was born June 7th. I was baptized June 28th, 1987. 27 years later, the same date, June 28th, 2014, I was ordained. So I was baptized and ordained the same date. Not only that, we left Mexico 2 weeks after my birthday. We arrived to Colorado June 29th. My ordination was June 28th. I said my Thanksgiving Mass 27 years later after arriving to the United States on the day we arrived, 27 years later. Or whatever years. No, not 27, a little less. But the same day, those dates. June is like that's why I wanted to come and talk June, because Miguel was wanting me to come like in January. I'm like, no, it's too cold. And, we had tacos and burritos, and now that kind of made it even better. So, yeah, so if we want to have more Mexican food, let's get more Mexican seminarians. Thank you.
Do these talks get better and better or more? And Father, just last meeting, we were just talking about how we want this club to be a reflection of the makeup of our diocese. When we look in the mirror, we don't want to see all Anglos. We want to see Anglos.
Vietnamese.
And Vietnamese. And Hispanic.
Burmese.
Burmese, a growing population.
From
very
Corpus
good
Christi.
Catholics.
Corpus
That's right.
Christi.
Yeah.
Very faithful.
That's what we want to be. And your mother is our newest member.
There you go. Bravo.
And we want your sister. So we'll be talking with you because we want your ideas.
Okay.
Everybody will be getting together again for our monthly meeting.
Can you give us a blessing?
Yes, I will get. Yeah. Whenever we're ready. We're ready.
We'll be meeting again the third Tuesday of next month. Again, Deacon Dave is going to give his vocation talk. He is in the permanent diaconate, and it's always interesting and useful to get that perspective. Jan Latta, our director of vocations, is on track to become a permanent deacon himself. So, Father, if you give us your blessing, we'll go forth and get to work.
All right. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May the God of peace, the God of love, and the God who gives all gifts and all blessings protect you and keep you. And may Almighty God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit come upon you and remain with you forever. Amen. Okay, go in peace. Thank you. Thank you.